Luxury brands are struggling. Luxury is not dead. But the old luxury playbook is cracking in public. For years, many labels raised prices, polished the stores, tightened the doors, and told shoppers the jump was part of the magic. Now the bill is coming due. Customers who once stretched for a bag, belt, perfume, or pair of shoes are asking a colder question: what exactly am I paying for? By the end, you will understand why this pullback matters now, and what it says about how we all shop. Luxury was supposed to be protected from normal pressure. Groceries get squeezed. Gas gets squeezed. Rent gets squeezed. But luxury was sold as a separate planet, where desire beats math. That planet still exists for the very rich, but it is smaller. What changed was not one scandal or one ugly handbag. It was a slow shift in trust. Shoppers felt prices moving faster than quality, creativity, service, and emotional value. Once that feeling settles in, the brand no longer looks rare. It looks expensive on purpose. That is the uncomfortable truth. The industry did not only sell leather, watches, dresses, and logos. It sold permission to feel elevated. But when the same customer is fighting higher bills everywhere, permission starts to look like pressure. Luxury companies love soft words. They say normalization. They say selective growth. They say brand elevation. They say disciplined distribution. Ordinary people hear something else. They hear, we raised prices, chased richer shoppers, and hoped the middle customer would keep clapping from outside the velvet rope. The money story is simple, but the emotional story is sharper. During the post-pandemic boom, many shoppers wanted to reward themselves. Delayed trips, parties, and milestones made luxury feel like finally living again. Brands noticed, and prices climbed. Some price increases had real explanations. Materials cost more, labor cost more, shipping was messy, currencies moved, stores cost more to run. But the increases did not stop when the emergency mood faded and shoppers noticed. When price becomes part of the fantasy, companies can mistake resistance for loyalty. They see people still buying and assume the bond is unbreakable. But some shoppers were trapped by aspiration, social pressure, and the fear that waiting would cost more. Then the mood turned. Credit card balances mattered again. Student loans, rent, insurance, childcare, and food bills pressed harder. People did not stop wanting nice things. They stopped believing every expensive thing deserved the word luxury. Bain has warned that the luxury customer base has shrunk sharply compared with a recent peak, with tens of millions of buyers stepping back. Wealthy collectors did not vanish. The broad, aspirational layer became tired, skeptical, and harder to impress. That one detail explains a lot. The richest clients can keep buying. But luxury growth was not built only on billionaires. It also came from professionals, travelers, young workers, and middle-income shoppers buying entry points into a dream. Those entry points mattered. A fragrance, a card holder, a small leather good, sunglasses, a scarf, a wallet, a sneaker. These were not cheap, but they made the brand feel reachable. Then many of those entry points became less forgiving. The lower rungs of the ladder moved up. The small treat became a serious financial decision. The first purchase, which used to feel like a milestone, started to feel like a warning sign. This is why the phrase overpricing hits so hard. It is not only about whether a company can technically charge more. It is about whether the customer still feels respected after paying. A high price can feel thrilling. An unfair price feels embarrassing. The embarrassment is what executives should fear. People rarely brag about feeling manipulated. They go quiet. They stop browsing. They unfollow. They buy secondhand. They tell themselves the brand is not for them anymore. Chanel became a symbol of the pricing debate because some famous handbags climbed dramatically after 2019. Reports described the classic flap reaching levels that made longtime fans question whether the price still matched the product, service, and feeling. That does not mean every shopper abandoned the house. It means the conversation changed. A price that once made the item feel iconic made some buyers compare stitching, hardware, resale value, and alternatives. Gucci shows the other side of the problem. When a brand becomes highly visible, widely copied, and tied to a trend cycle, it cannot rely forever on yesterday's heat. If prices stay high while desire cools, customers reassess the relationship. Gucci has faced a sharp sales slowdown in recent reporting, and the issue is bigger than one collection. The brand needs excitement, but excitement is harder when shoppers feel they have already seen the logo everywhere and paid enough for the privilege. Burberry has shown how painful repositioning can be. Moving a heritage name upmarket may sound elegant in a boardroom, but shoppers notice when prices rise faster than confidence in the product. If the new story is weak, the old customer feels pushed away. Prada has been watched closely because it kept more creative momentum than many peers. Yet even admired brands face the same cautious environment. Fashion credibility helps, but it does not erase rent, food, travel, and daily bills. Hermès is the exception that proves the rule. Scarcity, craft, waiting lists, and tight distribution make the purchase feel less like a price hike and more like access. But even here, the lesson is not that any price works. Trust has to be earned. LVMH remains powerful, but even the largest luxury group has felt the chill in fashion and leather goods. The point is not collapse. The point is that scale does not protect a company forever if desire starts looking like expensive sameness. Louis Vuitton still has enormous cultural strength, but the challenge is clear. How do you keep a logo desirable when the customer is fluent in price comparisons, resale listings, travel shopping, and social media criticism? Dior has benefited from visibility, beauty, fashion, and celebrity power, but visibility cuts both ways. When a brand is everywhere, shoppers ask whether the product still feels personal or whether they paid to become a walking ad. Here is where grocery shopping enters the luxury story. The same consumer who once ignored unit prices is now checking ounces, coupons, loyalty prices, and store brands. That habit changes how every price tag feels. At the supermarket, shoppers learned that price is often designed to confuse. One package is smaller, one sale needs a card, one shelf tag needs an app. One larger pack is not always the better deal. Attention saves money. Once people learn that lesson in groceries, they bring it everywhere. They look at a designer bag and ask what changed besides the price. They look at a boutique and wonder how much theater is built into the ticket. Grocery pricing also teaches trust. When a cereal box gets smaller but the shelf price barely moves, the customer may not quit that day. But a crack forms. The buyer feels watched, studied, and nudged. Luxury has created a similar crack. Government researchers have found that shrinkflation is real, even if it explains only a small part of overall inflation. Shoppers are not wrong to notice shrinking packages. They are wrong only if they blame that one tactic for every painful bill. The same is true in luxury. Not every price increase is greed. Not every expensive product is a ripoff. But repeated increases without visible improvement help customers build a case in their minds. Store layouts train people too. Groceries place essentials, deals, seasonal displays, and impulse items in ways that shape movement. Luxury stores do it with quiet lighting, controlled entrances, mirrors, seating, champagne, and silence. Both environments guide behavior before shoppers admit they are being guided. Loyalty cards add another layer. The shelf says one price, the app says another, the coupon says another, and checkout becomes a test. People learn that the real price is not always the printed price. Private labels have also changed shopper psychology. Store brands used to feel like a compromise. Now many are packaged well, taste fine, and cost less. Once a shopper learns that cheaper does not always mean worse, the spell of the famous label weakens. That matters for luxury because the dupe economy is not only about copying, it is about permission. A shopper who buys a good private label product at the grocery store becomes more open to the idea that prestige branding often adds more emotion than function. Coupons teach patience. Delivery apps teach convenience costs. Premium grocery lines teach that ordinary products can be dressed up with better packaging and higher margins. These habits make consumers better at spotting when the story around a product may be carrying more weight than the product itself. It is small, quiet, and hard to unlearn. Delivery apps are revealing. They turn convenience into fees, tips, markups, and service charges. People still use them because time has value, but they understand the trade-off and they bring that thinking to luxury. Premium products are not the enemy. People enjoy better coffee, better skincare, better shoes, better travel, better design. The problem begins when premium becomes a costume. If the item is ordinary under the lighting, the customer eventually notices. For years, luxury benefited from a powerful idea. If it costs more today, it may cost even more tomorrow. That fear of missing out pushed shoppers to buy sooner. But if the same item keeps rising while excitement falls, urgency turns into resentment. The resale market made this worse for some brands. Shoppers can now see how items perform after purchase. If resale is weak, the purchase stops looking like an asset of desire and starts looking like an expensive mood. Secondhand luxury changed the moral feeling of shopping. Buying used can feel smarter, more sustainable, and less submissive to the latest price increase. The customer still gets the brand, but the brand does not get the full margin sale. The dupe conversation added another hit. Some people buy alternatives because they cannot afford the original. Others buy them because they no longer respect the original price. When respect disappears, the dream decays. Social media once supercharged luxury. Hauls, unboxings, airport shopping, and influencer trips made the lifestyle feel close enough to touch. Now the same platforms spread price complaints, quality complaints, resale comparisons, and jokes. That is the risk of turning customers into unpaid advertisers. The moment they feel used, the advertising reverses. A disappointed buyer with a phone can damage desirability faster than a campaign can repair it. Luxury used to depend on controlled information. The boutique associate knew more than the shopper. Now product histories, price charts, quality reviews, and alternatives circulate everywhere. The curtain is thinner. That does not destroy luxury. It changes the standard. If the customer can see more, the brand has to justify more. A famous name is still powerful, but fame alone cannot hide a lazy product forever. The industry also created a dangerous split between top clients and everybody else. The very rich get private rooms, early access, rare pieces, personal attention, and a sense of being known. The broader customer gets higher prices and sometimes less warmth. This is where alienation begins. People can accept not being the biggest client. They cannot accept feeling foolish. If a shopper saves for months and walks into a store only to feel invisible, the brand has not elevated itself. It has exposed itself. Luxury stores are status theaters. Every gesture matters. A locked door matters. A waiting line matters. A glance from staff matters. A glass case matters. These details can make the purchase feel special or make the customer feel judged. When prices rise, service has to rise too. Not with fake friendliness, but with competence, patience, and care. If the customer pays more and receives less, the brand loses the moral argument before the product even comes out of the box. Many companies moved away from wholesale and discount exposure. That can protect prestige, but it also removes places where aspirational shoppers discovered the brand. Fewer access points can strengthen scarcity or shrink the future base. Raising prices can make financial reports look better for a while. If units fall only a little and prices rise a lot, revenue can hold up. Margins can look beautiful. Investors may applaud. But the hidden cost is the customer who leaves quietly and may not return. That hidden cost is hard to measure in the moment. A lost sale is visible. A lost dream is not. The danger is that companies keep optimizing for today's margin while draining tomorrow's desire. Luxury has always used scarcity. Real scarcity comes from materials, skilled labor, time, and heritage. Manufactured scarcity comes from withholding supply. Shoppers can tolerate both, but only when the result feels worth it. When scarcity feels like a game, customers start playing back. They refuse to chase. They stop calling stores. They stop pretending that being offered a basic item is an honor. They remember that they are the buyer. This shift is strong among younger shoppers. They still care about style, identity, and status, but they are less obedient to old rules. They mix vintage, streetwear, resale, independent labels, and premium basics with less shame. Young shoppers also talk openly about money. They compare deals. They explain dupes. They reveal where items are made. They share bad experiences. They do not always see discretion as a virtue. That is a problem for brands built on quiet control. Older aspirational customers are also changing. Many have bought enough. The closet is full. The thrill of the first major purchase cannot be repeated forever. When a new item costs much more than the old one, nostalgia becomes a competitor. That is why handbags and shoes have been under pressure in several reports. These categories were hit by steep price increases, and many shoppers already own versions they like. A higher price does not automatically create a new need. Ready-to-wear has a different problem. It can be beautiful, but it often demands a lifestyle that fewer people live daily. Hybrid work, casual dressing, travel fatigue, and changing social rules make some expensive clothing harder to justify. Beauty and fragrance offer an easier entry point. A lipstick or scent can feel like luxury without the huge commitment. But even there, shoppers compare value, longevity, packaging, and alternatives. Jewelry and ultra-high-end pieces are more resilient because they lean into rarity and lasting value. The wealthiest clients still want objects that feel personal and scarce. But a diamond event cannot replace millions of lost first-time customers. The top of the market is not the whole market. That is the mistake. If luxury becomes only a playground for the ultra-rich, it may stay profitable for certain houses, but it loses cultural reach. A smaller temple can be richer and less relevant at the same time. Luxury depends on desire spreading beyond the people who can easily afford it. The dream has to travel. It has to be seen, discussed, imagined, saved for, and emotionally rehearsed. When too many people feel excluded, the dream stops traveling. Some executives may not fear that. They may prefer fewer customers spending more. That strategy can work, but it is not painless. It demands better product, better service, stronger culture, and tighter discipline. It cannot survive on price increases alone. Another uncomfortable issue is creativity. Shoppers will pay for wonder. They will pay for beauty. They will pay for design that makes them feel something. What they resist is paying more for repetition with a louder price tag. Luxury brands often say they invest in heritage. Heritage is valuable, but it becomes a cage when every collection feels like a remix of safe codes. Customers ask whether they are buying craft or funding a museum shop with better lighting. The creative gap matters because price hikes are easier to accept when the product feels new, difficult, and emotionally alive. If the product feels familiar, the higher price looks exposed. The customer can see the margin standing there without clothes. That is when the price tag starts doing the opposite of what it was meant to do. Quality complaints add heat to the fire. Even when complaints are not representative, they travel. One loose thread, one crooked stitch, one cracked edge, one disappointing repair story can become evidence for people already wondering if the price is too high. Luxury cannot afford to sound defensive about quality. The whole promise is that details matter. When a buyer pays a serious price, small flaws feel personal. They are not just defects, they are insults to the story. It would be unfair to pretend luxury production is simple. Skilled labor is expensive. Materials can be difficult. Small batches cost more. Stores, taxes, rents, compliance, and repair networks add real costs. But the customer is not required to care about every internal cost. The customer cares about value as felt. Does the object move me? Does it last? Does it feel considered? Does the service respect me? Does the price make sense in the story I am being sold? That is why official economic language often fails. Inflation may be cooling, but people still remember the old price. A smaller increase after a huge jump does not feel like relief. It feels like the new high price became permanent. The same happens in luxury. A brand can say growth is stabilizing, trends are improving, or demand is normalizing. But the shopper remembers when the bag, shoe, coat, or accessory cost much less. The old anchor is still in their head. Anchors are powerful. If a customer saw an item at one price for years, a much higher price changes the emotional math. The item might still be beautiful, but the buyer now sees the gap. That gap becomes a silent argument against the purchase. Some brands tried to solve this with smaller products and new entry pieces. That can help, but it has to be done carefully. If the smaller item feels like a compromise built only to preserve margin, customers notice. Others leaned harder into experiences. Cafes, exhibitions, restaurants, travel events, and private appointments can deepen attachment. But experiences cannot become a distraction from weak products. The object still has to carry the weight after the event is over. The shift toward experience also shows that customers are not simply cheap, they are reallocating. Many would rather spend on a trip, a memorable meal, wellness, concerts, family time, or home comfort than on another object that feels too familiar. This is the biggest threat. Luxury is no longer competing only with other luxury brands. It competes with every expensive choice in a stressed household. It competes with rent. It competes with groceries. It competes with savings. It competes with peace of mind. That is where the grocery lesson returns. When shoppers see food prices rise, even slowly, they change routines. They buy fewer impulse items. They cook differently. They switch brands. They use loyalty deals. They stop treating small choices as small. Those habits migrate upward. A person who saves money by switching to private label pasta may also start questioning the designer sneaker. A person who deletes a delivery app may delay a handbag. A person who tracks subscriptions may cancel the fantasy. Convenience habits are especially costly because they hide inside time pressure. A delivery fee here, a service charge there, a premium shelf placement, a last-minute purchase, a small upgrade. People are learning that convenience often has a luxury tax attached. Once consumers see that, they become less patient with brands that rely on fog. They want clearer value. They want fewer games. They want the price to feel like a decision, not a trap. The luxury customer is not becoming anti-luxury. They are becoming anti-insult. They still admire craft. They still like beauty. They still want symbols. But they do not want to feel punished for believing in a brand too early. That emotional distinction is crucial. A brand can recover from a weak season. It is harder to recover from making customers feel betrayed. Betrayal is not a financial metric, but it shows up later in traffic, conversion, resale, and cultural heat. Some luxury houses will blame macro conditions. There is truth there. China has been uneven. Tourist spending shifted. Currency swings, interest rates, and confidence matter. But macro conditions do not explain every disappointment. If a company raised prices aggressively, reduced access, leaned on logos, copied its own archive, and offered less warmth to ordinary customers, it cannot blame the economy for the entire reaction. The economy may be the storm, but strategy built the roof. China deserves special attention because it powered so much growth. When confidence there weakens, luxury feels it quickly. But Chinese shoppers are not simply spending less. Many are becoming more sophisticated, more value-aware, and more demanding about meaning. American shoppers are also split. The wealthy can still spend, helped by financial markets and assets. But the aspirational customer feels every bill. That split creates a market where the top looks calm while the base becomes restless. Europe has pressure from tourism, local demand, and currency effects. Japan had a surge when currency conditions made shopping attractive for visitors, then faced tougher comparisons. Luxury is global, but the pain is not identical everywhere. The Middle East has been stronger in several reports, helped by wealth, tourism, and destination shopping. But strength in one region does not erase the broader question. If growth depends on fewer places and fewer customers, the structure becomes more fragile. The pattern is uneven, but the message is not. That fragility is why the word struggling should be used carefully. Some brands are genuinely under pressure. Some are stable. Some are thriving at the very top. But the industry as a whole is struggling with trust, pricing power, and relevance. The most dangerous struggle is not visible in one earnings release. It is the changing internal voice of the consumer. The voice that used to say, maybe one day, now says, maybe not. That one phrase, maybe not, is devastating. It means the customer has not just postponed the purchase. they have questioned the identity the purchase was supposed to deliver. Once the fantasy is optional, the price must work harder. Luxury brands used to benefit from social aspiration. People wanted to be seen with the item. Now, some consumers fear looking financially careless. In a world where value consciousness is admired, obvious overpayment can become socially risky. This is why quiet luxury had a moment. It was not only about minimal design, it was also about avoiding the embarrassment of looking like a billboard during a cost-of-living squeeze. Subtlety became a way to spend, without shouting. But quiet luxury has limits too. If everything becomes beige, restrained, and expensive, customers get bored. The answer is not simply louder logos or quieter logos. The answer is desire that feels earned. Earned desire comes from design, materials, service, story, scarcity, and cultural timing working together. When one part is weak, price exposes it. When several parts are weak, the customer calls it overpricing. The uncomfortable part for executives is that customers may not return just because inflation slows. A shopper who has learned to live without a brand may discover they are fine. That is the real danger of a pause. It can become a breakup. During the boom, many companies acted as if the aspirational buyer was endless. There would always be another tourist, bonus, first bag, or gift. The slowdown proves desire must be renewed, not harvested forever. Renewal requires humility. It means admitting that a customer who questions price is not automatically unsophisticated. They may be more informed than ever. They may know the materials, the resale value, the repair policy, and the competitor's product. Luxury hates comparison, but comparison is now normal. A shopper can compare a new boutique price with a used price, a vintage price, a local artisan price, a travel price, and a premium non-luxury alternative while standing in the store. That is a brutal environment for lazy pricing. It does not mean luxury must become cheap. It means luxury must become convincing again. Convincing luxury does not apologize for being expensive. It makes expense feel coherent. The buyer should understand why the object costs more without needing a lecture. The quality, service, emotion, and rarity should speak before the salesperson does. Some brands will cut costs quietly. That is dangerous if customers feel it. Cheaper materials, thinner service, reduced repairs, crowded boutiques, and rushed experiences can protect margins while poisoning the brand. Others may respond with discounts through back channels. That can move inventory, but it trains customers to wait. Once shoppers believe the real price appears later, full price becomes harder to defend. The smarter response is discipline, better products, fewer weak releases, clearer entry points, stronger repairs, honest clienteling. More respect for the customer who buys one meaningful piece, not only the private room wardrobe. Luxury should remember that today's small buyer can be tomorrow's major client. More importantly, today's small buyer can be tomorrow's storyteller. They can make the brand feel alive in culture. Treating them as disposable is strategically foolish. The industry also needs to rethink the affordable luxury vacuum. When high-end brands moved up, they left space below. Contemporary labels, resale platforms, premium basics, and independent designers moved into that space with fewer rules and less arrogance. That space matters because it captures people at the moment they are forming taste. If the first exciting purchase comes from somewhere else, the old luxury house may not be the dream anymore. It may be just another expensive option. This is how customer loss becomes cultural loss. It starts with price, then it becomes habit, then it becomes identity. The shopper who once said, "I want that brand," starts saying, "That brand is not worth it." The phrase "not worth it" is brutal because it attacks the center of luxury. Luxury can survive being expensive. It cannot survive being widely considered not worth it. There will always be collectors, loyalists, and ultra-wealthy buyers. There will always be people who love heritage, craft, ritual, and emotion. The point is not that luxury disappears. The point is that the audience is being narrowed. A narrowed audience can make a company feel more exclusive, but it can also make the brand less visible in everyday culture. Luxury needs distance, but it also needs desire from afar. Too much distance becomes irrelevance. The next few years may separate real houses from price machines. Real houses can defend value because they create meaning. Price machines depend on the next increase. When customers resist, the machine has fewer moves. This is why the current struggle is healthy in one sense. It is forcing a reset. The customer is saying, prove it. Prove the craft. Prove the creativity. Prove the service. Prove the scarcity. Prove the price is not just an extraction. That demand may actually make luxury better. If brands listen, they can become sharper, less lazy, more respectful, and more interesting. If they do not, shoppers have more alternatives than ever. Those alternatives are not only cheaper, some are more personal. A vintage piece with history, a local maker with transparency, a smaller brand with better service, a repairable item without a logo, a trip that becomes a memory, a savings account that brings calm. That last alternative matters most. Peace of mind has become a luxury product. For many households, not buying is not failure. It is control. It is dignity. It is refusing to let a brand define personal worth. Luxury marketing rarely wants to admit that. It wants the customer to feel incomplete without the item. But after years of inflation, people are rediscovering the power of saying no. That word is dangerous because it spreads. The same no appears at the grocery store when a shopper skips the overpriced snack. It appears in the app when they choose pickup instead of delivery. It appears in fashion when they close the tab. Small refusals add up to a new consumer mood. That mood is not joyless. It can be satisfying. Finding value feels good. Avoiding a bad purchase feels good. Seeing through a pricing trick feels good. A consumer who feels smarter becomes harder to seduce with old language. Luxury language still matters, but it must evolve. Words like heritage, craftsmanship, exclusivity, and timelessness cannot be used as wallpaper. They need evidence. Customers want to feel the truth of those words in the object and the experience. If a bag is called timeless, it should not feel trend-exhausted next season. If shoes are called crafted, they should hold up. If a boutique promises client care, care should continue after the card clears. After-sales service may become a major battleground. Repairs, transparency, warranties, and respectful problem-solving can rebuild trust. A luxury customer does not expect perfection in every object, but expects the brand to stand behind the promise. Pricing architecture will matter too. Brands need entry points that do not feel insulting, core products that feel defensible, and top-end pieces that feel truly special. Without that latter, the next generation has no natural path in. The danger is that companies misread any rebound. A small recovery does not prove the old strategy was right. It may only mean markets stabilized, tourists returned, or wealthy clients kept spending. The trust problem can remain. The better question is not, can luxury grow next year? The better question is, can luxury regain the customers it made feel foolish? Growth without trust is fragile. This is why the title feels true even with nuance. Every brand is not struggling in the same way, but every brand is facing the same test. After years of higher prices, customers are demanding a clearer answer to one question: why should I still believe? That question is now sitting at the center of the market. Some can answer, some cannot. The ones that can will talk less about elevation and show more evidence of value. The ones that cannot will keep polishing the store while the customer walks past. The luxury slowdown is not only a rich person shopping story, it is a mirror of the broader economy. People are tired of being told that higher prices are normal, smaller packages are normal, fees are normal, and less access is normal. At some point, normal becomes a choice. Shoppers decide whether to accept it. In groceries, they switch brands. In delivery, they delete apps. In fashion, they buy vintage. In luxury, they stop dreaming on command. That is the real power shift. Companies still have marketing budgets, celebrities, boutiques, and heritage. But consumers have information, alternatives, public voices, and fatigue. Fatigue is not loud at first. It looks like browsing without buying. It looks like saving the post but not clicking. Trying the bag but leaving. Watching the haul but feeling nothing. Walking through the store for inspiration and purchasing somewhere else. The industry sees traffic. The customer feels distance. Distance is expensive. It increases the amount of marketing needed to create the same emotion. It weakens loyalty. It makes the next price hike more dangerous. It turns a brand from a desire into a debate. Luxury should not be afraid of debate, but it should be afraid of boredom. When customers argue about whether a product is worth it, the brand still matters. When they stop caring, the game is worse. Right now, the industry is somewhere between anger and boredom. Some shoppers are angry about prices. Some are bored by sameness. Some are still loyal. Some are waiting. That mixed mood is why the next moves matter. If brands cut creativity and rely on scarcity, they risk looking empty. If they chase discounts, they risk weakening prestige. If they only court the ultra-rich, they risk losing culture. If they rebuild value, they may earn back trust. The path back is not mysterious. Make things people remember. Price them with discipline. Treat every customer with respect. Stop confusing exclusion with desirability. Stop assuming a logo can carry endless increases. Bring back the feeling that made people care. That feeling is not cheapness. It is wonder. It is the sense that someone made something with attention, and that owning it will mean something beyond the receipt. Luxury without wonder is just an expensive object in a nice room, and the customer has finally started saying that out loud. Not always in angry words. Sometimes just by leaving the store empty-handed. Sometimes by buying second-hand. Sometimes by choosing a small maker. Sometimes by keeping the money. So the biggest takeaway is this. Luxury is not collapsing, but the easy pricing era is over. The aspirational customer is no longer willing to absorb every increase quietly. The value story has to be rebuilt. The brands that understand this will not need louder slogans. The second takeaway is that everyday inflation trains shoppers to look harder. Grocery bills, package sizes, loyalty cards, coupons, private labels, and convenience fees taught people how pricing works. That education did not stay in the supermarket. The third takeaway is that the richest clients can keep the lights bright, but they cannot replace the cultural energy of millions of customers who used to dream, save, share, and participate. Luxury needs more than money. It needs belief. The final takeaway is the simplest. If a brand wants to charge more, it must mean more. Better design, better quality, better service, better honesty, better respect. Otherwise, the customer will not call it luxury, they will call it overpriced. If this video made you look differently at the price tag, like it, share it with someone who still thinks luxury brands can raise prices forever, and comment this question. Which luxury purchase still feels worth the money, and which one crossed the line?